The head of new media at Al Jazeera, Moeed Ahmad, will be speaking at the Media 2010 conference in Sydney today. Yesterday, he gave a presentation on how Al Jazeera created a repository of footage and stories, freely available for people to use, licensed under Creative Commons.
So I'll go a bit over what we've done with Creative Commons in the past couple of years, and then I believe Rami will talk a bit about what they've done in Jordan, and then I think we'll have a discussion format. And I think I'm looking forward to that discussion, because I think the questions is where the interesting discussion will happen. What we've done, you can go to the repository, and that's already been done and said, and it's easy to find. Anyways, so I'm head of new media in Al Jazeera. A bit about Al Jazeera. We were formed in '96, the Arabic channel, and since then we've added a lot more channels to the network. Very few people actually know, just because our presence in this part is still limited. But there's an English channel. Obviously, I think most people know about it. There's a documentary channel. There's tons of sports channels. I think 14 or 15. I think I've lost count. And we have a research and study center, and then we have a training center, and then a number of websites. Anyways, let's get into it. Our first deployment of the Creative Commons repository was during the Gaza conflict. Most of you remember this happened at the end of 2008, beginning of 2009, where the conflict in Gaza began. Operation Cast Lead, where the Israeli forces started bombing Gaza. And the situation was different in this conflict, where you did not have access. Most of the reporters did not have access, news organizations, into the conflict zone. Al Jazeera's presence is quite heavy in that area anyways, because we report because of our regional presence. So we already had reporters on the scene before the conflict began. So we were in this unique position where we had people reporting, almost about 7 reporters, 2 from the English and about 5 from the Arabic channel, already placed in the conflict. And international journalists could not get in because Israel had blocked off access. So we were generating this content reporting from this area of conflict, which is obviously of interest to the whole world, and but people cannot access this easily. So it was almost an ethical question. Traditionally, what news organizations do is when they have access to exclusive content, they will charge a premium for it. So essentially it's sold by the second. How much you reproduce or broadcast that content, it will cost you just as that much. We did something very different at that point. What we did is we discussed it within our management. New media, we've been the proponents of open source and Creative Commons is ideas like this, and we said, why don't we do something different? We release this content free under Creative Commons license, where people can take that content and rebroadcast without having to take permission, as long as they attribute. So that was the 3.0 license. Attribution license is what we decided on, and then every bit of video that was being captured on Al Jazeera Lens was then published on our Creative Commons repository. So the project actually started, I think, a few days into the war. I think by the first week of January, we had the repository up, and most of the content was making it there daily. So as the reports were coming in, reports were going out onto the repository. So you could easily go in, browse, find day by day, like day 1, day 2, day 3, along with metadata and so on. The uses of this content. Initially, when we talked about Creative Commons, what we pitched to the management was that other broadcasters who want to report on the conflict will not be able to because they don't have access. So we'll solve that problem by making it free and available in broadcast quality. But actually what we saw was situations like Wikipedia. As soon as we released the repository, one of the first people to ask us about this repository was the Wikipedia Foundation. A lot of the editors from Wikipedia, they said, since the conflict has started, we have published lots of articles, but there's no images to go along with. So can we take stills from your video? And we're like, fantastic, why not? And this obviously, as you know, like from a brand exposure perspective, this is fantastic, because if you search for anything really on Google, you'll find Wikipedia being generally the first or the second link on any particular topic. So how did the footage actually get used? I told you the use case that we were expecting, which was normally other news broadcasters using it or let's say documentary filmmakers and so on. But this is sort of feedback that we got. Obviously, the people who take the footage are not required to contact us, ask permission or anything like that, or even notify us. But many people do out of courtesy that, okay, we're using this is how it was used. So Wikipedia, as I mentioned, a lot of filmmakers contacted us, and they said they're going to use it in a number of film projects. Activists, obviously this conflict brought out a lot of emotion in people and the activists on both sides, and they want video footage to sort of go with their campaigns. You had video game developers asking us whether they could use this footage. Obviously teachers to train, or teach journalism and so on. Obviously they need content and they need content they can use legally, and that's hard to find. You had artists. There was obviously, if you remember, people who wrote songs during the conflict, and in their music videos. Independent media productions, school projects, and lastly, obviously leads as well, financial leads. And that's something that everybody in the business is interested in. Like, if you're doing this, what's happening with your financial, like the revenue that you're supposed to generate?